Hello Lone Wolves, how are you doing? This is the second part of the interview / chat I had with XT and Mohammed Umer. If you haven't seen the first one, there's a link in the description. Enjoy!
Hearing these references and comparison, I've read a few articles in the past comparing USA and Western civilization in general today in comparison with for decline of the Roman Empire. And what the theme that I'm hearing again and again is that once, a nation becomes lecherous and immoral and women come into the corridors of power, then that empire eventually is decimated and disintegrated.
Right.
And they say Western civilization is heading towards that end, which brought the fall of the Roman Empire. But I don't know the details. I'm just telling you what I've read.
It's okay.
Heard it out.
You basically got it in one. You got it in one, pretty much. So yeah. Sorry, Wolf. You want
No,
to
that was
add to
actually
that,
the direction I wanted to go. But yeah.
Well, that's a good direction, and I'll be happy to respond to that because I think you and I would probably read some similar source material. By the way, the Roman Empire is one of my favorite historical periods in human history for a lot of reasons. Okay. I mean, it's not the only one, but yes, as a matter of fact, the marked decline of the Roman Empire was a lot of its markers was in fact, as you so aptly put, Umer, was the introduction of women into the corridors of power, the rampant immorality, even transgenderism. Became a thing. Okay, so they were well, Romans were kind of well known to be hedonistic pigs anyway. God bless them. So they were the sort of people that had vomitoriums. They were the sort of people that had brothels. I mean, sexuality was, I don't know why people seem to think, oh yes, our ancestors were prudish. It's like bullshit.
No, yeah, well,
quite the contrary. It's like no, they weren't. Some were, not all. But I mean, not
all, especially not like
no.
I don't think we're at the stage as a civilization. We're at the stage yet as the Romans were at their worst, But it looks like that this time is going to come. Just look at your television, Just look at the way things are, presented right now. It's going into that direction. I'm afraid. That's why people say, for example, Sandman is making. Has been promoting his merchandise lately, and he has, I think, one T-shirt like the only solution to feminism is Islam, something like that. So Islam could be a force maybe for change, like a religion. It's the only religion that stays. Like
I hope not ISIS Islam.
No. Just
I'm afraid I have to say no to that, and I consider myself very enlightened on this subject. No, really. And no offense to you, Umer, at all.
Not at all, man.
Look,
not at all.
I've got my own views
up.
too, but
religion,
go ahead.
Religion scares me. Islam scares me right now. Too much Christianity scares me, because it's not so much the religions, it's the nut jobs that decide that they are speaking the word for God and to condone the most awful of acts. Okay, that scares the shit out of me. Okay, and frankly, no, and I just to me it's a regressive. It's very regressive. Now, Umer, you're a good example of and bear in mind, I mean, I've lived in Islamic countries. Okay, I can say the prayers. I've read the Quran. I mean, come on, I've also done the same with the Bible. So yeah. But here's one thing I'll say about what you're talking about, Wolf. And actually, it's kind of ironic because I had this conversation with my ex-wife, Meta, just days ago. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of getting on my high horse with her about things. And she didn't disagree with me. I said, I think, and I said these exact words. I said, I may not agree with everything that is Islamic, particularly from a Middle Eastern standpoint, okay, because that frankly scares me. But I think they have a point when they kind of corral their women and put a fine control on their movements and their actions and their capabilities in society. At least they've got that aspect of their societies kind of reeled in a bit. Okay. And from that standpoint, yeah, I can definitely get behind it. But again, I also recognize that you couldn't just overnight come in and just tell all Western women, well, here's how it is, ladies. You've enjoyed it. You've had a good run. You know, you've been going around riding the cock carousel, but now here's your burqa, and here, you know, so
no,
like,
I don't see that happening either. But that's because women and of course a lot of Western men too, I think equally, have lost faith in any type of God, you know. And to make this full circle and return to Bruford's law again, is that okay? Bruford's law says that you know, if there's no benefit, well, let's say it. If there's no benefit, they will not do something or don't do something. In other words, faith in God. For example, my grandmother was a very religious woman. She was a Christian, and her faith in God and the afterlife kept her on track. And well, if that's gone, then why should you, for example, you know, not do being, for example, hypergamous, for example, and stay faithful to your man? Because if you don't, you will go to hell, you know. So that's another aspect of religion that kept like women and men in line.
True.
So
I agree with that.
So
yeah,
it was not only like men putting out rules for women. It was more than that. It's faith in God. That was the key.
Yeah. But see, here's the thing. People who say, and especially women, who, oh, there's so many strict rules on women. Well, there are just as many strict rules on men and restrictions on men too. It's not like, it's not like I've got a free pass to go and sleep around. No, it's not like, in fact, whole bloody burden of providing for the family, for the kids is just on me. If my wife works, I have no right even to ask for her money to contribute towards the household. So that's right. Not very liberating for me. It's very, very binding for me.
Exactly.
So,
extremely binding on me.
That's Islamic law right there.
But it's not just about...
And I'm not saying every Muslim follows it, but I followed it like as good as anybody could. And, you know, it's very... And I was happy I didn't do it as a burden. I did it as a sacred duty, because as a father, as a husband, I consider it my you know, sacred responsibility anyways. But what I'm saying is that I don't know why people have this thing that Muslim men control. If you saw my grandmother, Jesus, man, like she had absolute control of our entire family. She had a stroke. She could move from the bed, and from, you know, left little finger, she could, bring a, you know, kind of an earthquake in the entire family. You should have seen her.
Yeah.
Jeez, man.
Well, I think that's the great misconception they make about religious people. I think Muslims in general, like indeed, every Muslim man is like, you know, with the iron fist hitting the table and controlling their woman. I think also many women live that way in like, just like, call it a good way. Being faithful and stuff like that, because of their own faith in God, and because they want that afterlife. They want also to go to paradise, and they will, you know, it's much deeper. It's much more than that. You know, it's. You know.
But see, because that is also changing. I've heard about, you know, and I've come across women who are very religious, and yet they actually question with extreme resentment. Why do a woman have to be the one to be pregnant with a child and carried inside her 9 months?
Blame nature.
When they get their feminist mindset, they defy God as well. They don't give a damn to the God or whatever.
Honestly, at that point, if she's actually in direct conflict, see, at that point, it's like, how can you really call her even religious? I mean, if that's because she's not. I mean, she's in direct conflict. With what it espouses. Now, one thing I want to make very clear here is I don't hate Islam. I just want to, you know, because that may come across sounding like that. I don't. I wish to, you know, probably. Well, you and I have talked about these sort of things, Wolf. I mean, I'm a very much a spiritual man. Okay, I do find an amazing quality about life, and through the lens of spirituality and philosophy, very much so. Okay. My beef is, and again, this is a complex issue. However, I will say in support of what you said, I agree with that. Okay, it did provide a framework, and that's the good part. And I could say that about either Islam or Christianity or any other similar type religion. And Umar made a very good point. In Islam, and I do know this, by the way, about Muslim lifestyles typically, okay, and again, that common sense approach that you outlined at the beginning, I agree with. You know, the day-to-day familial life of anyone, whether you're in Pakistan or whether you're in Iran or whether you're a Muslim living in the States or in Australia, it doesn't matter. Basically, the man is responsible for looking after the family and is held heavily accountable, particularly in the more
Absolutely.
staunch countries like Saudi Arabia, for example. So, and that's it. And the woman can go and work, and the law basically states that she doesn't even have to feed her kids.
Yeah,
It still
absolutely.
falls upon the man. So here's the thing, though, about what I'm going to say about that. I'll use myself as an example. With my recent red pill journey, okay, when my wife decided that when I say wife, I just mean ex-wife. So I'm just gonna,
You have a wife?
But we're getting not anymore.
Just kidding.
But no, I'm free and single
Sorry,
now. But
man.
here's the thing. But I, as a man, as a family man, I still feel that compulsion, that need to do for them. I cannot help it. I feel that I'm failing some fundamental aspect of myself by not providing. It is in the same way that it's in a female's nature to desire resources from a capable man, so is it the man wishes to make those resources for him, but particularly to a finer point when family, progeny is involved. That is a huge game changer. Wow, that's a game changer.
Holy.
Yeah.
I could not agree more. You've hit the nail on the head. And I gave this example, and this is how I try to explain to people when say, there are people now, MGTOW, oh, this is a role dictated by society. No, it's not. It's in a man's nature to provide for his family, for his progeny, for his children. And the way I explain it is, like, I don't know if you have had this, come across this, German Shepherd dog, when you get them working breed, it's their prey drive. This is that drive that a man has. You cannot, if you look at a German Shepherd dog, I've had three of them. So they cannot sit. You need to train them. You need to make them exercise. They want you to give him a task to perform. If nothing else, if they are trained, they will stand guard, they will protect the family. It's their drive. That is that way. And they can't help it. And that's exactly what XT has said. As a man, as XT, myself, we've got kids. I look at my son and my daughter, and I have this urge, oh man, I need to work. I need to make money. I need to buy a house so that when I die, they've got something for their future. This makes and it's not, nobody has taught me this thing. It comes from within myself, within my core, from within my heart.
Yeah, but
it's my drive. It's my
still
to exist.
I also think maybe, but still you're raised in a certain way, right? In a certain culture, so that could influence it. Like I'm not disagreeing with you. But...
No. I agree with you. See, here's the thing. It's so when I was not married, when I did not have kids, I did not have this drive. Okay, because I wasn't married, I didn't have family. When I was not married, I used to think, why the hell am I working even so hard? Why do I need to do it? Because if I just work 3 days a week, that's more than enough. I can live in a 1-room or 2-room house, and that's it. And that's what gives you the rise. That's what drives you to seek companionship, to have a wife, like in evolutionary terms, a mate. You want to have your own offspring, your own progeny. And once you get them, it's impossible to explain it to you, man. If you've not had any kids,
experienced.
And once you get them, it just unleashes it. The gates of whatever hell opens up, and there's a deluge, like the storm of Noah, and you just know, oh Jesus, this is what happens when you become a father.
I always wondered how it would be, because sometimes I try to imagine myself, like, how would I be as a father, and then I think by myself, well, I sometimes doubt myself, having this drive and enough drive to even provide for my kids. Something I think maybe today's men could be a little bit like insecure about. But on the other hand, I hear these stories like you just told me, like this comes naturally, and you will only understand it with.
I don't know what.
I don't know. You know, that's something I just think about from time to time. How would that be?
Okay, so think of them pine cones as seeds. So what I was referring to specifically, if I'm paraphrasing myself, I referred to, and this is a much bigger picture thing. This actually does kind of go in line with, like earlier you were talking about, asking about predictions about where society's headed, Wolf. Yeah. And so one of the things, I did a video not back in December, it was called the MGTOW Force Awakens. Okay, and it was a tongue-in-cheek Star Wars thing I did, but I was in it, and it's not the only video, I think there's another one, where I talked about having to pick up the pieces of society. And one of the things that I see about MGTOW, which is a natural phenomenon, is that the way that I referred to it was in the way that antibodies are formed in your body to combat a virus, is the very reason why MGTOW exists as a direct result of the pervasive influence of second wave, third wave feminism, and how it's affected society, laws, and everything that creates a framework for society and its resultant disastrous effects. Okay, so now let's fast forward. Stephen Molyneux, I think I never pronounce his name wrong. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of him. He's a very deep intellectual guy. Loves to talk exhaustively on subjects, but he also does his homework. Very smart man. A lot of things that he has to say I agree with. And one of the things that and I arrived at this conclusion before I even saw anything of his. And so once I did his and others of a similar ilk, I definitely have to agree that, much as I hate to say it, and Umer I know supports this as well, but you talk about these flashpoints, these shooters, and these are guys basically reaching a conclusion that the only response is that's the way to wake up and shake society, basically to grab society by the shoulders and shake it and say, hey, you see me? Yeah. You see me? I'm angry and I'm sick and tired of your shit. That is what you're seeing. Okay, and it's not going to stop just like that. No. Okay, so in fact, it is in the same way that you start getting sores on your body, and this is medical, which you'll appreciate, Umer, is a marker for a deeper issue that's going to get worse. Absolutely. So what I'm saying is, so let's fast forward to Planet of the Apes. Okay, Charles Heston, I never get his name right either, sitting there on the beach, and he sees have you guys seen that, by the way, the old one? The Planet of the Apes.
Oh yeah, the original. Okay. Many
the original. It's a fantastic movie, and then he finally realizes that all this time he's thinking he's on an alien planet.
Yep.
But then he comes across, at the very end, the Statue of Liberty, sort of washed up or on the shore of the beach, and he realizes, oh my God, this is my world. Yeah. You bastards, what have you done? So it's that moment. Okay, so let's think about that in terms of MGTOW. What I see is MGTOW is also a natural survival instinct to men. Some of us, not all of us, some of MGTOW are basically just angry at women in general. The red pill rage. Yep. Some of us are seeing the bigger picture. We see the far-reaching effects, and we realize that one day, that our own survival is contingent upon us surviving later on down the track. That's what I'm referring to. Particularly to the younger men. The older ones are there to usher the younger ones and to teach them and to say, okay, look, you need to avoid these situations. We're trying to basically save a fraction so that later we can rebuild. That's what I was talking about. So that when we go through this big cataclysmic societal upheaval, okay, this conflict, which is inevitable, it's in our nature, there has to be something on the other side of that. The wiser of us know this. We recognize that, and it's not an easy place to be, but it's a necessary part. It's in the same, that's why so I use the metaphor of a forest. They often say that in order to have a good to have a even better forest, you have to burn down the old one.
Yeah.
Okay, and so it burns, and is. But ironically, in that death comes new growth. So that's what I was referring to.
Okay.
So, and this is the cycle of humanity. This is the cycle that you referred to the Dark Ages earlier. It was a necessary, unfortunate part of our history, at least in the Europe milieu, in order for us to, and then what came after that? The Renaissance. Okay, now many would argue, oh, well, that started early, even in the Dark Ages it was happening. I agree. Who were the keepers of sanity? Monks.
Yeah, okay. Now I really start to get the picture, XT. Yeah.
So that's what I'm referring to. So in a way, MGTOW are like the modern day monks of old. In some of us, anyway.
Yeah.
We're the keepers, hopefully, of rationale, of sanity, of an understanding. Not necessarily that we're trying to make a recreation of the past. Oh, hold on just a moment. You hear me? Yes. Hola. Yeah, no tengo tiempo ahora mismo. Más tarde, ¿está bien? Muchas gracias, yeah? Okay, thank you. Housekeeping.
Joder, macho. Más tarde?
Más tarde means later.
Más tarde.
Más tarde, yeah. So, yeah, I said right now is not a good time. Can you come later, basically?
Well, in Spain, in Catalonia, they always say joder, macho. Do they ever say that? Over there?
Not really.
Oh, well, that's the word.
Well, these are Mexican. So
the
Mexican
that's different.
dialect
Okay. Yeah, okay. Never mind. Yeah.
So that was what I was getting at. So well,
the way you're explaining it,
Does that make sense? Yeah. Umer, do you have anything or?
Yeah, no. It's I'm really worried because one day this mega volcano is going to erupt, and Jesus, and just imagine, this guy who did these shootings in Christchurch, he was just by himself. Imagine if just 4 of them had banded together and had decided to act together in unison at same time in different locations. Just imagine, one guy was able to kill, I don't know, 50 or 60 people. Imagine if there were 4. The toll would have been in upwards of 400, 300, 5, who knows, 500.
But those are the guys, if that's going to happen, like the way you're saying it, like, you have groups of people that are going to organize themselves.
Eventually.
Could be white supremacists, could be, groups.
See,
something
I'll
like
tell
that.
you what is happening.
Yeah, but that's more like...
out.
Yeah. But I think that's more like the part of the... Those are, if we would stay in this metaphor, those are the fire itself. And I think there should also be, or there could also be a group of people, for example, MGTOW, that are not the fire. They're trying to stay out of the fire. But after the forest has burned down, they are going to come back and build it up again. Right? That's what you mean, XT?
In its simplest form, yeah. It's basically, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly. Or it doesn't even necessarily have to. It doesn't even have to be necessarily to that level. Although that is possible, right? That is very possible that it could come. I certainly hope not, but it's fallacy to ever think that everything's just wonderful and everything's going to work out. I mean, sure, it can work out, but maybe not quite the way we're thinking it will. I mean. The form that it takes, I can't be completely sure, but I do know this much. There will be conflict. There will be casualties. There will be, there already have been. There already are. Okay, that's just part of the human condition, period. But on a much larger scale. I mean, you think of the last century, you think of World War II and World War I. Okay, and the effect it had on us. And in a very real way, those wars are still coming back to haunt us even today a bit, more than a bit.
The whole Nazi.
Not just that's part of it, but it's not all of it. That's only
just
part
to
of
say
it.
that the reason the Nazis organized, it was also a stance against globalism, and you see now
retaliation.
Yeah,
it was in retaliation. Yeah.
Retaliation, but
Yeah.
also against globalism. They were very critical about globalism. You know what we see today, what's actually destroying everything today. Yeah.
And see what XT pointed out, all these men who kill themselves after this divorce and what family courts do to them. And here's the thing, up till now, all these men, these fathers, they have been deciding to take their lives. Just imagine, pause for a moment and think, if they decide, okay, I'm going to kill myself, but before that, I'm going to kill everybody I can before I kill myself. Imagine that day, and it is going to come one day. I'm telling you, it is very close by. It is very soon to happen. We are very near that flashpoint.
I hope not. Yeah. Well, on the other hand, you know, you also don't want a society in which men are more and more marginalized, and which that's also not an option, you know.
It's already happening.
Yeah,
it's already there.
Well, that's not sustainable either, huh?
No, it's not, and it's innovative. Eventually, what I'm saying and what XT is predicting and what I'm predicting, it's inevitable. I can see it. It's around the corner. It's going to happen in next 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, who knows? But it's very close. In terms of human sociological development, 1, 2, or 3 decades is a very, very small time, very short time. The time arcs are like 3 generations, 2 generations, 5 generations. So 3 decades is nothing in those terms.
What do you think? What will be the role of technology? Imagine. Well, just in regards to male-female relationships, like, could it be that we are headed towards some kind of comparable to the Matrix? That we are, well, instead of you know, let's set it up differently. Like, we have a growing group of men that are like, they're a little bit of rejects from the dating pool, just to say. And there are many other examples, but technology could maybe replace a lot of things that they cannot have at the moment. For example, I give an example, like Sandman, for example, is busy with Loverbots, stuff like that. So you have a growing group of incels. That's what they call them, you know, the involuntary celibates. They're all like very angry about the fact that, you know, the women are, you know, choosing the top percentages of men, and they just simply cannot get any, you know, pussy. So an answer to that, for example, this problem could be technology, like, for example, Loverbots. And maybe for companionship, you know, we can have also these more advanced Loverbots replacing women. And maybe if you as a man want a child and you don't want to have a woman involved, you can, for example, have an artificial womb. You know, so could technology be like a replacement and maybe a solution for all these like sociological problems we have?
Possibly.
Okay.
At least that's my. It's possible. Anything's possible. Yeah. Look, one of my favorite smart guys in the world is Einstein. And he said one of the most, and you see this on coffee mugs everywhere, and on T-shirts. Yeah. Imagination. He speaks of imagination for a good reason, because when he came up with the theory of relativity, he did it in an armchair. Yeah. Okay, sitting, thinking with his mind. That requires imagination to expand your mind into areas that there's no text or defined, delineated, writings on this particular, like of the theory of relativity. All of that just came from his brain. That a lot of guys, you know, all of us have this capability to a greater or lesser degree. But what I was going to say about that is, to answer your question, and what, by all means chime in, especially from your point of view, I would say that technology can play a role. Technology, in my opinion, is nothing more than an extension of our evolutionary drive. In the same way a hermit crab, and again, yes, we're speaking of evolution, thank you, Charles. But, okay, in the same way a hermit crab has a shell, you know, or co-ops the shell for itself, we even look at nature and co-opt ideas from nature to build and enhance technology. Spider robots, for example, to go and check out other planets and to be more mobile over very very uneven terrain, as an example, just one small one. Loverbots, artificial wombs. One thing that we're pretty good at and we're getting better at is the artificial side, So yeah, maybe it will help some of these sociological issues, because at the moment we're seeing a conflict and literally our own natures being turned against us, or in a very unhealthy way. Like, for example, the issue with women and their nature and the way the world works nowadays, and then how we're having direct conflicts, and the nuclear family's been destroyed, which is alarming from somebody who's looking at the population and its need to be replenished, at least at that level. It's like birth rates, etc., replacing, the old with the young, yada yada yada. Yeah, perhaps. So anyway, Umer, what do you think? I mean,
Yeah, there's a dictum in physics and science: everything which is not forbidden is allowed, or permissible, or compulsory. So it's a principle for English law also, but it's also something which they talk about in sciences as well, and in physics. So there is no law that forbids or states that having romantic or love robots is not permissible. So it's going to happen eventually, sooner or later. There's no principle in physics that actually forbids time travel. So time travel is going to happen eventually, sooner or later. We just don't have the right amount of energy and dark matter and other exotic stuff that is required to make it happen. So that's a different issue, though. So it's going to happen. And in Japan, actually, they do have these services in which a woman can be hired to pose as your wife or as your child, or a man can be hired to be father of a child, like who does not have a child, or like does not know his or her father. And they do it for like years and years and years. It's on YouTube. You can have a look at it.
I haven't heard of that, actually.
Oh, yeah,
No.
yeah.
No.
Oh, there's full interviews on. There's a guy who runs this service, and they've shown this interview. You want me to, pose and go with you and pose to be your daughter's father? You do realize this is a lie, and we'll continue to lie this for next 10 years to da da da. And I said, oh my God, look at where we've ended up at. And they already have these digital little dogs which act as pets, which are not real dogs, but they, demand all like a normal dog. They want to be fed, and you have to respond to it. It's really weird, but that is what is already happening.
Yeah, it is weird. Yeah.
Well, what Wolf is talking about too, I'm not sure. Are you familiar? These Loverbots he's talking about, they're here. They're here now.
Yeah.
Okay. They're granted. It's a new thing on the scene. And you could easily argue that 20 years from now, maybe even less, who knows? These are the precursors to even more sophisticated versions. So yeah. So are you aware of those, Umer, by the way, or?
Yeah. Are you talking about? Is it Happy Humble Hermit who has got a?
Well, yeah, he did a. He
has a doll.
And
so yeah, where it's there already, and it's there. Yeah.
Personally, I can tell you my take on this. Okay, just real quick. I really am kind of turned off by the idea of an artificial female. It doesn't do anything for me. I've thought, and I really thought about it, like, would I be interested in something like that? Honestly, I just prefer my own methods. I mean, I don't need that.
Yeah.
But I recognize that some guys, maybe it helps in some way, so it's fine.
What my take on this is, and
sure.
Well, Happy Humble Hermit made a video about it. About he talked about his experiences with the doll, and he also has a girlfriend, and comparing the two, And what he said, I thought was very profound. He said, okay, when I look at my girlfriend, I'm paraphrasing here, so I don't know the exact quote, but when I look at my girlfriend, I see impermanence, and when I look at my doll, I see permanence. And I think, well, that is the essence of all. And if you think a little bit further about this, is that today's women compared to the women of the past have lost a lot of their stability and reliability in the eyes of a man, you know?
Very true, yeah.
And I think the appeal of a doll or maybe a loverbot is to balance that out, you know, and to have, you know, to take a little bit of stability back and a little bit of permanence back. But the problem, I think, is that what attracts one person to another person is always a little bit of unpredictability and instability. You know, that is what makes other people interesting, and I think there's a lack of that in a doll or loverbot maybe. So, but I think that's why these things appeal so much to younger men.
I think so too. There, actually, I can't remember if it was you or was it you, Umer, something about a science fiction story about a guy with basically like a sex robot on an interstellar trip. Was that you? Who was that?
I don't know, but which movie was it?
I don't know.
Was it Moon movie or something?
I don't know.
It's not an American movie. Okay.
No, it wasn't. But it doesn't even matter. Apparently, it was quite good. Who did I have that conversation with? Okay, well, I'm sorry, I can't recall that at the moment. But it's actually kind of supports what you're talking about. You're talking about the difference between permanence and impermanence. But then you also came back to one of the key differences that makes an actual real female more tantalizing, at least in certain regards.
Tantalizing,
right?
Yes.
Okay, that makes her because men, even in our sexual and companionship situations and love in the arena of love and romance, an element of challenge attracts us. In the same way that fixing a problem challenges us, in the way that conquering a summit of a mountain challenges us. It's no different. It's just, you know, that's it. And so whereas a doll is still a static object. I don't care how real it feels. I don't care, you know, it's still going to be very compliant. And so that can get boring real fast.
I think so too.
And so in the story,
unless you can program this into the doll that it's going to be less compliant and more unpredictable. But then
precisely,
I think the idea that that you still have the power to program it all,
Well, this was explored in that movie, and I haven't seen it. I'm going to find out the name, and I'll get back with you guys on that later.
Okay.
But here's the key element, and to support what you're saying, is that at first she did everything he wanted her to do. Okay, this sex robot that basically was his companion so he wouldn't feel lonely on this very long trip to another planet in our solar system. I don't know the details of that. It doesn't matter. This is more about the relationship. And so he got to the point where he actually overrode her programming so that she would be more contrary.
They say thrill of the hunt is in the chase, not the kill. So exactly. The chase is more enjoyable, more challenging than the kill itself, and that is actually true. Again, human nature.
Of course, you want to have what you cannot have. It should always be something like that. Also within a relationship, there should be a little bit of challenge, a little bit of spicing things up.
Yeah. And talking of science fiction, I have to say sorry for saying this if it offends someone, but Ridley Scott screwed up the Alien franchise. Sorry, guys, I had to get it off the chest.
which was not the Alien franchise? The first 3 parts?
Oh no! The first one was directed by Ridley Scott. Other 2 weren't, and then he came back and first he made the Prometheus, and then he made the Covenant, and he just destroyed his own prodigious child.
I was a bit disappointed by Prometheus.
Very disappointed. He should have left the xenomorph alone. Leave the queen alone. Don't mess with it.
I think
Actually,
the second part was the best one, I think.
Oh, I loved Alien, man. I watch it every 12, 14 months. I watch all the first 3 and 4 movies. Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, there's a
yeah.
very, very convincing, strong female lead role that didn't require preachy feminist bullshit to ruin it.
Oh,
So,
look, man, Alien franchise wouldn't be Alien franchise without Ripley.
Oh, hell
Period.
yeah.
Absolutely. Just like Naomi Rapace in the girl with the dragon tattoo trilogy, the original Lisbeth Salander in the Swedish movies, not the English movie. So there are 3 movies. You can't have that trilogy without Lisbeth Salander. That movie is Lisbeth Salander. Sarah Connor, Terminator. Like, there is no Terminator without Sarah Connor and Arnold Schwarzenegger, for that matter. So, and you go and watch Japanese anime from years ago, long before this feminist nonsense. Very often their lead roles, one of their lead roles is always a female. Always. You watch their anime, man, and they make a role like, you say, "Oh my God, yeah, that's what it is."
So what's exactly the difference between, well, those female, lead characters?
They don't inject. Like, see, when I was watching the Black Panther movie, there was a point in which she says, that in the Wakanda there's this teenage who's the genius of the genius, and she says, that guy is brought in, the white guy who's got every bone fractured. And she said, "Oh, another white boy that needs to be saved by us." What the hell? Like, what do you mean? It's so nonsense.
Yeah, okay.
It's so nonsense.
Okay.
Yeah. Injecting and forcing the political ideology into the movie.
Yeah.
Just be normal.
Yes.
Create a strong character so that you don't have to use the crutches of political ideology. But they don't do that.
No, okay. Just like you're saying, like just a strong female character isn't enough anymore. There should be an additional political statement made.
See, when they created Alien with Ripley, they that was as strong a character as you can imagine.
Yeah.
And that franchise is nothing without Ripley. Did they have to, this was made in 1970s. They didn't have to.
She was she was so cool.
Oh, jeez, man.
but I thought she wasn't attractive. I especially the third one. She was like a guy, But anyway, she was cool.
Well, I'm not a fan of that one either. Anyway, the third one, no.
Yeah, the second one was great.
I was the four. I liked all 4 of them. And if you look at the strong characters, look at Star Trek Voyager, Captain Catherine Janeway. Look at that. If you want to go one step higher, you should watch Stargate Atlantis. Dr. Elizabeth Weir. She's the leader, like civilian leader, female leader of the expedition that goes off-world into a different galaxy. That's how a leader is. Like that. Like, you have to watch
the Voyager one. The name was Captain Janeway.
Catherine
Janeway. Yeah. I remember watching that series when I was small. When I was really a small child, and I asked my mother, like, why does this woman have such a low voice? And she said, well, just some women have that. I said, I think, that's so ugly or so. I didn't like it as a child, and my mother said, like, well, some men think that's very nice in a woman, but as a child, I couldn't understand why men would be attractive to such a woman with a low pitched voice. I can understand that, but on the other hand, it gave her like some kind of authority or something. But
well, and let's just call it for what it is, a little bit more of a masculine air.
Yeah, I hate
to a certain degree.
As a kid.
To a certain degree. Well, there's a famous CEO. Well, big scandal. I'm trying to think of her name, but in real life, by the way, who would deliberately change her voice whenever she did anything public.
Okay.
And she was called out on it. She actually got caught. And again, okay, so, but without trying to muddy the water too much here about strong female characters. Again, like I talk about, as much as I revile the radicalization of basically our gynocentric society and what that means, it doesn't mean that I don't appreciate a strong woman. I actually do. But when the woman is doing it at the expense of men, then I have a problem. And it's at the expense of family, at the expense of the framework that once drove our society and actually helped to produce healthy offspring that were well adjusted, that had two parents. I recognize why that worked. Okay, never mind the arguments for or against it. I understand why it worked, and I can see not only by my own personal experience, but why it fails for single mother households and why it's a nightmare right now. We have the statistics to prove it, to support it. So again, strong female characters, yes, women can be strong in their own right. Okay, in their but not basically weak versions of men, but just strong. In other words, the qualities about being a mother, a woman, a wife, a protector of her children. That's a good example in Aliens, for example. She sacrifices everything to rescue Newt.
Well, yeah, just like I think Umer said earlier this talk about his. I think it was about your grandmother, who was a very strong woman.
She was,
but you can be a very strong strong woman within the family setting, and I think it's actually quite good.
See, I think this role of a man and a woman in a family structure and how that role. See, if you look closely at it, it's not about man and woman. It's the question of relationship between man and a woman in context of husband and wife or spousal relationship. So as a daughter, a woman always benefits from her father. As a sister, especially in our culture, a sister is always benefiting from her brother. As a mother, a woman is always benefiting from her son in different ways. But why is that, especially in context of the Muslim culture, Pakistani culture? Because in each and every one of these relationships, she's the one who's actually benefiting from the male character, from the male person. It's only when it comes to husband and wife relationship that she has some direct responsibility that she says, okay, I'm going to rebel, I'm not going to accept it. Because in that relationship alone, she is held responsible for her actions and accountable for her actions as the mother of the children. And that is when she rebels. Everywhere else, she's happy because she's the one who's benefiting from the man. So she's perfectly fine with it. But not when she has to answer for her own actions and choices. So it's a very complex discussion. I think I think we should do a talk on just this topic alone. Like how does seriously, there's a lot of stuff to unpack. Like in a traditional family, what is my role? What is my wife's role? How does it affect when she says, oh, you need to do dishes and I need to go out to have dinner with my girlfriends? And that has some real life, real time, very bad, very, very strong and deep impacts on the logistics and workings of the life and how it actually affects deeply the care of the children. And that is, children are the biggest casualty of feminism. Nobody even talks about it. Everybody's concerned about women's rights and men's rights. Who is talking about children's rights? Nobody.
It's almost like they don't care about it. Even, for example, that it is going to be increasingly normal as a lesbian couple or even as a single woman to have a child from a sperm bank, you know? So,
well, they can try.
And they say, oh, wow, you know, they, of course, not even questioning it, what the life of the child will be without a father figure. Like, well, why are you even asking? Of course the child doesn't need a father figure. I mean, the child has us, you know, 2 women. It's even better. You know, that seems to be the current atmosphere around children.
Well, it's not going to work. Eventually it's going to backfire. So
we will find out because we see this trend starting last couple of years. So we will find out how it goes. But I think, I agree. Well, myself, I am raised by a single mother, so I know what that means, let alone if you don't have a father at all. I saw my father a few times still, so, yeah.
Yeah, you and I discussed that, actually. I remember.
Yeah, we did.
We did, and that's it, and that is a real, and I know it's a sore subject with you on certain elements regarding your father. Am I right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it is. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's fine. And there's, you know what? There's a lot of guys that need to hear that, and so, it's a matter of fact, I still haven't gotten around to it, but it was something I wanted to address in our conversations. Why I haven't posted anything from our original interview. So, but it's okay. I'm happy to, that will come in time. But want to address it a little bit here. The the lack of a father, that yin and that yang, the yin and the yang of the mother father trope, and the need for it is very apparent. Deep resentments of, fathers are ostracized, demonized, and regardless of the truth of it, every situation being unique unto itself, but there are many commonalities. But at the end of the day, and again, speaking in generalizations, but we need generalizations. Women will often just absolutely wipe the floor with the man, basically distracting from her own bad decisions and behavior by simply just placing the blame on him. This is so common with female nature. They really seem to have a hard time with accepting, most women, with really, really owning their mistakes, and even more so, being remorseful for their mistakes. They're supposed to be the empathetic, nurturing sex, but I'm finding Western women nowadays to show themselves to, and this is where the red pill, I think, comes in a little bit. You start to understand. It's like, what's the old saying? What the saying that I adopt now? You can either love women or understand them. I choose to understand them for my own emotional protection, because they can be the most cold, calculating, cruel. I mean, I thought men could be fucking vicious. Holy crap, women could be vicious. Wow.
No, see, actually, there's a very deeper aspect to it. And see, we are taught that, see, the discussion actually is, again, I'll try to sum it up quickly, summarize it, because it's very complex. But here's the thing. They're always talking about, in terms of empathy and weakness. When they do that, in the back of our mind, the comparison between subconsciously a 6-foot man versus a 5'3" woman, okay? And that's a very massive power gradient. Even so, I'm just upward of 5'11". I'm almost 6, and I can still bench press 100 kilograms. In my prime, I could do more. Even if I wasn't doing it, if there was another woman 5'11", exactly my size, almost 6 foot, the upper torso strength of a male, like as in me, is about 40 to 50% higher than a woman of the same size and weight. And that is when I'm not doing any exercise or weight training. Add to that weight training and everything, that same woman can come at me and try to hit me, and I'll punch her once and she's going to go down like a log. Okay, so that's the reality. And it's biology. There's no point in arguing against it. It's same like I'm 5'11" and a half. A male adult chimpanzee is 5.5 foot, and its upper torso strength is up to 6 to 8 times higher than my strength. It is literally capable of ripping my head off my shoulders. You put me in a cage, or a 6-foot man in a cage with a chimpanzee, it will rip his head off. There's no point in arguing. That's biology. So let's recognize that one thing. Now, there is violence from male towards females, because of course because who hunts the deer? It's the lion or the leopard who hunts the deer, not the other way around. Okay, so that is why that happens, because there's a massive difference in strength and physical strength between man and woman. Now remove that out of the picture and put the woman in a higher physical strength situation, i.e. her own infant. The rate of mothers murdering their own infants is equal to, and in some studies higher than, the fathers killing their own children. Why? Because in those cases, the woman is the physically stronger person. So as soon as she knows she's the stronger person, she is as ruthless as a man could be, and probably more ruthless, because we perceive, oh, mother is always empathetic and cares for the best interest of the kids. No, she does not, because if they were really caring about their own children, they wouldn't be ditching and dumping their own perfect, responsible husbands, the biological fathers of their own children. They would stick with them, they would stay with them, but they don't. And yes,
Because
that's what
they
it is.
think about themselves. Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
Of course, of course, of course. See, here's the thing. XT is one example. I'm the other example. I know of many other men whose wives left them, and they ended up with their children, having the custody of their children. They fought for it, and you never see them dating or trying to get married again. Or you see them sometimes. Some of them will do that. Usually, when men hook up with other women and marry them, it's because the mother of his children essentially does not allow much meaningful contact with his children. Okay. But you see all these single mothers, as soon as they are free, they are either going to clubs picking up men, or they're trying to hook up with the next man. They don't care. If they're truly, I mean, how does she even have time to do it? How does a woman who's got 2 or 3 or 4 kids have time to do it? I don't have time with 2 children. I get them only on weekends. I don't have any time to have a woman in my life. That is presuming I wanted to have a woman in my life. Because my children are more important than them.
Yeah, I think that's a good like generalization. If you look at
it's a quick analysis. Obviously, there are
like
exceptions. Yeah,
like for example, I think with my parents, my father is just as bad as my mother in that regard. Like, I don't even call it bad. Like they had the same behavior. Like also looking for other women just after the divorce and everything. But anyway, the generalization I understand. Yeah, and that's a big difference we see. It's I think all boils down to responsibility, and the feeling of responsibility somehow seems a little bit absent in our opposite sex at times. Also the absence of responsibility to own their own mistakes and choices and everything. Just a funny thing, like I mentioned in one of my videos, is that I had at one point contact with my last ex-girlfriend, and we had a little chat, and we had a forest walk together, and then we had a little chat about maybe seeing each other again, and stuff like that. Very dangerous stuff. And something that struck me was that one of the first things she mentioned when we were starting to talk a little bit more seriously, is that she didn't want to, well, it's a Dutch saying, anyway, it comes down to she actually didn't really want to talk about the past and what happened. In other words, she absolutely didn't want to take any responsibility and be confronted with the mistakes she made. I found it so striking, because if you really want to rekindle something and you really want to give something a serious shot, especially with an ex, I think the first thing you want to do logically is to talk about the things that went wrong. That's how men think about things, and try to talk it out, talk it over, and then we can have a fresh new start when we learn about our past mistakes. But that's something she at the beginning already refused to do. So I found it very striking.
It is.
I agree with that.
I was really turned off by it. Absolutely, 100%. So striking.
And I don't blame you.
That's female nature in my face.
It is.
Yeah, it is, and it's unfortunate that is the case. And trust me, I call it field work, and it's basically all it is. It's just me interacting in the public square, basically out there, whether it be in the social environment or even at the workplace. And I'm noticing the behaviors of women. I really do watch and observe, and I keep a good distance. I had a guy, one of my subscribers, actually asked me, "Oh, well, could you do a video about working with women, and how to navigate that?" And I think Terrence Popp actually did one, but but based on my own observation, it always comes down to this, because women are so, it's almost like one of the things that feminism really, the feminist lie, which there's a book I want to read, by the way, is Miss Andrew Today wrote it. But
okay,
they're constantly just blowing up their self-importance. Like women are walking around with this overinflated sense of power, smugness, a lot of them, entitlement. Basically, it's just wrapped up into entitlement, and which also leads to rampant narcissistic tendencies. Okay, it's me. It's all about me, and you. And so basically my interests trump yours, the man, which basically means that any rational man who gives a shit about himself would avoid that at all costs. And God knows I certainly do, because I don't have time. Here's one of the things. I care enough about my own mental state, and I recognize that choose your battles, because basically every encounter you have with a woman of that caliber, of that level of entitlement, it's not going to end well if you maintain a regular, because at some point she's gonna shit test you, even if you're not in a relationship or even attempting one. Okay, she's gonna see what she can get away with you, especially in the workplace, which tends to be more cutthroat. So your best thing is to avoid that at all costs, or find ways to, just basically keep your interactions at a minimum, very professional, very curt, and for God's sakes, never go into a room by yourself with them in the work, especially with the hashtag #MeToo movement. That's a fact. I can see it. I can feel the tension even where I'm working now. Yes, absolutely.
It's so sad, but it's necessary.
And the other thing is, the other thing that I've gathered, and I give the example from, and my observations come from life of my father and how my mother treated him and what she did to him. And then my first marriage, which failed, and then the second one. And the conclusion is that if you try to explain, they will come up with such a weird and distorted counter argument. You would be totally lost how to respond. They will take you, they will drag you down to a level of moral intellectual degeneracy, some of them, and you will not know how to deal with it. So don't explain yourself, because see, the time arcs that men think in, they are in years and decades. They are not, I don't think they are capable of understanding outside of the emotional framework. And if you try to explain, it's not going to work. I'm talking about in the personal relationships and everything. I'm not talking about, I interact with a lot of ladies in a professional environment, and it's a professional interaction. So I never get into the domain of assessing, or interacting with them in a personal way. So it's professional, which is, dictated by guidelines and rules and laws. And even there, you have to be careful how you choose to apply the law. But I'm talking about referring to the personal relationship. So don't explain to them anything, because tell them, I've tried to explain to you, it's not working, so this is how it is going to be. But see, the presumption even in that is that you are protected by law somehow when you say or do that. But in the Western society, you are not protected by that, any sort of law. Man has no defense. If she decides to call police, or he's trying to abuse me, that's it. Your life, as you know, is over, man. I'm telling you, you'll be thrown in jail. And any man in Western society, no investigation, no witnesses required. All the woman has to say is, "Oh, he threatened me to physically harm me. He's abusing me." That is it.
They know that.
They know it.
A lot of women know that. And
that's a very big weapon of mass destruction. They know they have this weapon, and they just want to use it on the first opportunity they feel like they can use it. They may end up destroying their own lives, but they will still use it.
Oh, they're taking you down with them. But here's the thing, it does more than, let's use me as an example real quick, okay, or even yourself, Umer, or even you too, Wolf. I mean, let's say that you have somebody you're responsible for that depends your success, your capability to earn and produce resources, another person, like in my case, my daughter, and even, let me just call it for what it is. They're still my family. Even though my wife and I are not, we don't consider ourselves, although I have a feeling she wants to get back together, but never mind. Well, especially now that I'm doing better.
Yeah, that they always want you back. When you got
Yeah.
doing better in your life, that's for sure.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh, oh!
they
I'm
they
getting,
they
I'm
like
getting
smell
kisses.
it. They smell it, you know,
Yeah.
Oh, dude! I
from a
mean, she's
distance
like a
through all
like a
the
cat.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
She can
Well,
smell the Benjamins.
Through
well,
seriously
here's
through
the
all
thing. It's
the
like,
Indonesian spices and the terasi and the everything. She can even smell it.
oh God.
Yeah.
And this is, I don't even, Western woman, Asian woman, Indian woman, Pakistani, they're all the bloody same. I mean, when it comes to that.
Yeah.
Okay, so, I mean, she might as well be a cat, and I might as well show up with a bag full of fucking tuna. And it's like, oh, my best friend in the whole wide world.
Yeah.
Okay, so it is what it is. And so, but here's the thing. My point is that getting back to the original, my point here is that the accusation issue that is really gaining ground, false accusations in particular, just the accusation alone destroys lives. It ruins people's jobs, and it has a domino effect upon the people depending on them. So if it's a man and he's got a family and he's got people that depend on him, it has an adverse effect not only on him, but on the people that depend on him. And there's this wanton use of the accusation weapon, just out of pure malice, hate, spite, whatever. And it's, and some of these women I've actually read articles and seen some videos. Oh, I didn't realize that he was going to go to jail. It's like, oh, fuck you. Seriously.
And see, no, you're true, absolutely, XT. And see, the thing is what you described, that they can smell the money and you're doing better, so they want to be back with you or my wife. See, I actually recognize this nature. I don't actually hold it against them. I would take her back in a heartbeat, but the laws are that if I take her back today, I am the one my kids are the one who are going to suffer in future if she decides to leave me again, because she's going to walk away with at least half of the assets. Mm-hmm. So it's actually, if the laws were not so against men and if the children were protected in terms of assets and properties, I would probably still take her back, despite the fact that I know that she's coming back to me for money. I still want my desire for my children to be under the same roof with both parents is stronger than being worried about, oh, she's coming to me because she's greedy. But the problem is, in this case, if I allow that to happen, what is going to happen is she's going to leave me again in 5 years. And this time she's going to walk away with more than half of my assets. Those assets, which should have been protected future inheritance right of my children. But in the law, only the woman has that right, has all the rights, not the children. And I cannot allow that to happen.
No. Just is your ex-wife, is she Pakistani as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It doesn't matter where they are. See, the thing is, when they come to West and they realize, oh, geez, I've got this massive, nuclear weapon, which I can wield anytime. Yeah. I just have to press this button. That's it, man. Doesn't matter where she's coming from.
Yeah. Sure.
Here's the weird thing with me, though. My ex is still living, and actually, I'm going to support you on that one, Umer. I don't like to do is be disingenuous.
Yeah.
I'm going to be very, very frank. Yeah, it feels good for me because we went through a difficult time economically, all of that. It took me almost over a year, actually about a year and a half to even get to this point. It just a slow job. There are a lot of factors for that, none of which is any of my fault. I mean, I was certainly hitting the bricks, as we say. So in multiple countries, no less. Dubai, Hong Kong, Singapore, even Jakarta, and here in the States. So anyway, I feel good that I'm providing for my daughter and that I can make money to help support her college, which is coming up soon. That really, it feels good to me, and I like that feeling. And even with my ex-wife, now all of a sudden she's, regretting her decisions and all of that, and it's like, yeah. But I mean, honestly, you're right. I agree with you. remember what I said earlier about the understanding versus loving? Well, I understand it. I don't necessarily like it completely. That's one area where we'll differ, but I do understand that is her nature and that it's not necessarily personal to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and that it is not the only aspect of me that she loves. I know that, believe me, I know that this woman does care about me deeply.
Yeah.
And that she's regretting her decisions. In some ways, and when you think about this, sometimes women are kind of slaves to their own nature in the same way that sometimes we're slaves to our nature.
Absolutely.
It's like when you wake up that day and you're like, oh my God, why did I sleep with that? I shouldn't have drank that extra beer. Okay, so it's the same thing with them. They're sometimes slaves to their own natures. And even some of them, the more rational ones, will come back round, and they will regret. They will. They do. Eventually, yeah. So, but not again. This is in the court of individuals.
Yeah.
But
see, it's actually the same thing. I am slave to my own nature. I can't help but constantly think, how can I help my children, which is a higher purpose than worrying about having my ex-wife back with me. Does it make sense? So for me, that's my prison. That's the cell that I carry with me. That's my own prison that I carry with me. It's my own prison. But that's my responsibility. I love it. I wouldn't want to be any other way except wanting to care for my children, and the way they love me back. That's more than any return that I could have. When my father was dying in his last days, I can tell you he couldn't. If he was a billionaire, it wouldn't have mattered to him. The thing that mattered to him was that he would open his eyes and he would see me sitting there, and he would look at me and I would look at him and I would hold him and I would hug him. And that was it. There were no words that required to be said. And even in that state, he would be worried. Why are you here? Why the hell don't he would get angry with me? Go the hell back to Australia. Your kids are alone. Because I work as a contractor, so if I'm not working, I'm not making any money. I'm not an employee. And he would say, "Why the hell you are here?" He would, call me names, out of his love, obviously. And he wanted me to come back, and I said, "I'm not going to go. Stop telling me to go. Leave you like this. I'm not going to leave you like this." And that is what his, that is what the payback of all of his life, of all that he had done. There was the life, the way his eyes would glow up when I would respond like that. It's not describable in words. You have to do it to understand what it means to a father. And I see the same thing with my son, and he comes to me and he hugs me and he says to me, "I missed you." But he's only 5 and he's very slow to pick up. I don't know if it's got some learning. He's definitely very, very highly intelligent, but some kids take a long time to start speak very properly, mostly boys. So he can't articulate things very properly. And he comes and he says, and when he says to me, "I missed you, Baba. I missed your hugs and cuddles." Oh my God, man, that is it for me. I just get another boost of nuclear energy into me, man. Same with my daughter. Today we were doing some drawing. With, pencil watercolors, and she said to me, "Oh, I love doing this stuff with you, Baba. You teach me so many things, all the physics that I know, all the anatomy that I know. You are the one who has taught me. Like, you have no idea, man, what it felt like. Like XT would know because he's got a kid. So you have a daughter, so you will understand what I'm saying. And so there's no amount of money can substitute for this kind of love and this kind of payback. It's kind of a payback. It's a spiritual payback.
You're almost like motivating me to actually have kids,
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
Yeah, and I say me because XT already has children, but that's why. But yeah,
you actually are yearning for companionship and a higher purpose, and you do want kids. You're just stuck because you've never seen anybody do this role, so you're not sure. See, the reason you think you're not going to be a good father is because you have never seen it around you in your society, in your culture.
Thank you for listening. The third part will be online very soon. Thanks.